GM, ladies and gentlemen, I am LL, and today we're going to be talking about the absolute state of crypto right now. And this is going to be broken down into four different segments. First, we're going to be talking about the EVM dilemma, which I've been alluding into in a lot of previous videos. So instead of doing a standalone video about that, I decided I'm going to be lumping it up together with this one. Then we're going to be talking about the status of Bitcoin. And on the third subject, we're going to be talking about a lot of these new regulations, the election of this year in America, and how it's going to be affecting crypto, obviously. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about Sybils, the airdrops, and the whole airdrop situation as of right now from a macro scale. And obviously, right now, we are kind of an accumulation phase / a bit of a small bear market, if I may say so. So that's going to be affecting on my mentality right now and obviously on my sentiment towards the future. So I have a bit of a bearish sentiment right now. There are a lot of things that don't look very good, which I'm going to be expanding into in this video. So let's get started with the first subject, which is about the EVM dilemma. So this is a brief, picture that I basically assembled, which contains all of the Ethereum layer 2s that I was able to find. Obviously, there's a lot more of them which are not listed in here, which are on testnet, or there are a lot more smaller L2s. Now, EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine. That is kind of like the base technology that these blockchains are using. Sometimes there's obviously certain things that they levy underneath, like technology from Polkadot or Celestia, for example, or like dual address system like in Dimension and Evmos, for instance. So there are some nuances between them. But for the most part, it is the same account-based system that they are using. Now, going back a few years, back in like, let's say 2020 or 2018, we had a lot more variety in the smart contract chains. We had back then Ethereum, we had Tron, we had Neo, we had VeChain. Well, Cardano smart contracts weren't a thing back then yet, but we had many chains which were not using the same technology, and all of them or some of them had smart contracts and they had their own DeFi scene, or they had games, or etc. Now, what happened going up in years, the Ethereum became de facto smart contract layer, and everybody basically started out to abandon their technology on, let's say, for example, Polkadot, in case of Manta or Astar, and they started to basically do EVM versions out of their existing chains. A lot of players actually did this. We had EOS, for example. And the difference between the layer 2 and L1s is mostly that the L2s are basically using the security underneath Ethereum, and obviously they are using Ethereum as the gas fee token. In case of Starknet, for example, you can also pay gas with their own tokens. You have a dual token for gas fees, which is actually kind of brilliant in itself. So you may ask, well, Lite, what exactly is the dilemma exactly over here? So number one dilemma here is there's just too many chains. Here on the screen, you're seeing in this big circle, you're seeing around 40 different L2s. And in terms of the liquidity, that cannot be spread around equally among all these chains. And yeah, there are some technologies which are levying like multi-layer liquidity and stuff like that, but that's just kind of pipeline stuff, and we haven't really seen that work on full scale yet, and it has a lot of security problems probably if it's going to be implemented, and it's going to be a very prime target for a lot of hackers. So that's the big thing, that everybody wants to now launch their own layer 2, things that are not even on this list like DBank and Friendtech like have now expressed, hey, we want to do our own layer 2s. And you ask like, well, is that really necessary? Is that really necessary? And we already have so many layer 2s. And there are a couple of red pills that people need to take. Number one is that a lot of these tokens that we see here on the screen, not exactly all of them, but most of them are just governance tokens. They cannot be used for gas. Their supplies are not deflating. So the value proposition of these layer 2 tokens are kind of insignificant in the context that they're going to be using Ethereum as the gas token. On the layer ones, they decided not to go that route. So for Ethereum Classic, obviously they're using ETC as gas token. On Avalanche, they use AVAX as the gas token. On Binance Smart Chain and OPBNB, it is BNB used as the gas token. On Gnosis Chain, they use the XDAI as the gas token. So there's different solutions that there have come, and these are bringing up the value a bit because they're using that as a gas token. Now, the layer 2s have this fundamental problem that how do we derive value? We have things that have launched recently like Mode, for example. We have the Manta. And yes, the market conditions are what they are, but the tokens are bleeding in price because the governance is valuable because it can do kind of sneaky stuff like, well, you can, if you have enough money, you can basically vote more allocations to your friends and things like that. And that's kind of like sneaky, and that does happen in certain ecosystems. It depends on if there's governance. Not all of them have treasuries on this list, so there's not really any money to allocate to anywhere. So the big problem is that it's too spread out, and a lot of these things are like, when ZK Sync launched a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about, oh, the ZK is the end game. It's not really the end game because ZK is not exactly a scalable solution. And when I say scalable solution, I mean that the cost of transaction sending money to X address should be sub 1 cent or 1 cent. And smart contract can maybe cost 5x that, depending on how many things are happening underneath. But those are reasonable prices. The third worlders in Africa, they can't afford to pay 20 cents for smart contract transaction swaps every day. That's not feasible. That's not feasible, and you need to bring those third worlders basically in. And right now, the EVM layers are kind of all first worlders. They can really keep up paying up those insane gas costs. So this is kind of like the EVM dilemma. There's too much stuff. This year especially, we have seen an insane amount of layer 2s being launched. Everybody wants to launch their own chain. They want to do an airdrop campaign. They want to do an ICO. And we just have too much. There's just too many of these, and none of them have any proprietary technology. And the most important point I'm making in this video right now, or in this segment, is the fact that we are valuing them on really weird reasons. Because traditionally, the companies are valued based on their revenue. But none of these companies here are actually making any revenue. Like, they are not making money to the holders. There's no dividends paid from the gas fees to the owners. I mean, in case of Blast, they are paying things for developers, but they're not paying it for the everyday users of the token. So a lot of these ecosystems are not paying dividends. They're not really giving you discounts or any really intrinsic monetary value with their tokens. So a lot of these tokenomics, and this really applies into outside of EVM, I think 99% of the tokenomics in a lot of coins are really bad. The idea of the coins and tokens versus fiat money is to kind of like have some type of a system that prevents from value feeding from the coins. And that is usually having deflation or mechanisms which are stopping inflation, or intrinsically having buybacks or things like that, which will increase the value. And right now, we're not seeing that. So the long-term hold of these tokens is absolutely ridiculous. The second segment I want to talk about is the Ethereum's price. And this is obviously, there's two things that kind of play into it. One is the thing we just talked about, is deflation and inflation. And we obviously had the merger, which basically made 10x decrease, 90% decrease in the inflation of Ethereum from proof of stake into proof of work. But in March 15th, we had the Dengun upgrade. What is the Dengun upgrade? Well, I'm not going to be breaking it down here because it's pretty self-explanatory. It was the big upgrade which basically made the layer 2s to have blob transactions, and all the gas fees in these layer 2s basically went 50 to 80% down. On Starknet, it was very high, like 80%. So it basically bundled up these L2 transactions together to basically lower the costs on the L2s. L2s made a big win in terms of the cost efficiency. So in case there's like layer 2s which are very gaming based, which you need a lot of transactions, it's beautiful that they have to pay very, very low gas fees because of that. But in terms of the price of the Ethereum, this has caused less burn. This has caused less burn of Ethereum. So since March 15th, we have been on an inflating scale. And almost we're at 0.16 per year. And if the activity would basically sustain the current numbers, and Gateway is only 9 now, so we are very low activity right now. But what you need to consider here is that we are actually almost going back into inflation instead of deflation because of this blob upgrade. So it's not good for the price. It's not good for the price of the Ethereum. And the really clear fixes for that is really just lower the base and the low end and the high end staking returns for Ethereum, what it is 3.4%. It should be half of that. It shouldn't be really that high because 3.5% is like the dollars and every other currency's world yearly inflation rate. So it's not good. It's not good at all. And it's inflating too high for me. I don't really care about the APY because it really only helps whales. When we're talking about 3% APY, that's only for the whales. So it's not really helping a lot of people. I think the better for everybody across the board is to have lower staking APY, which creates deflation and then increases the unit price of Ethereum. This is the path to go to. Then we obviously have the ETF happening, and the ETF is apparently next week even. But the Bitcoin, which we are going to be talking about in a second, there has been people saying, oh, the ETFs are just a way to basically control the price now. So after your ETF, now the Bitcoin's price is being controlled and the Ethereum's price is being controlled. I think there's currently a lot of suppression for the Ethereum's price because we haven't seen an all-time high since the merge update. In a lot of ways, the 20K is really reasonable valuation for Bitcoin. But I mean, we didn't improve the tech really, but we improved the scalability of the layer 2s, and obviously we have now improved the inflation system, which is in the numbers I'm not exactly one-to-one with agreeing, but the mechanisms really make sense in terms of the base idea. But are we going to be seeing 6,000 Ethereum or something? I don't know. I don't think we're going to be seeing a very big bump with the ETF. So ETFs may be an actual non-event. They might be a non-event. And I don't know, the next ETF after this one is probably going to be Ripple or Solana. Those are the big ones that have been talked about. Polkadot has been buzzworded a bit, but in case of Polkadot, I think it's just people with big bags trying to kind of some bullshit up. But I mean, yeah, they might have the contacts in the industry to do so. But that's basically what I have to say about Ethereum. So TLDR, there are a lot of problems right now, too many EVMs coming in, and I just really don't believe that they are very that scalable. The ZK technology is not really that impressive, actually, and it's not being able to scale to the point where it actually needs to go. So the ZK is not the end game. Now, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin. The big red pill about the Bitcoin's price is that 3 months ago, we had the all-time high of $73,750. The previous all-time high was $67,549 back in 21 November. That is roughly less than 3 years ago. We're talking about 2 years and 9 months. So a long time ago, but that was the previous all-time high in that cycle, and now we have made a new all-time high. Or have we? Because I actually run the numbers, and this is something I have talked about on a couple of videos, which is because we had such an insane inflation rate and the purchasing power of the dollar, the $67.5 thousand back in 21 would be today $73,800, which is $50 higher than the current all-time high of Bitcoin. So in reality, we haven't seen a new all-time high for Bitcoin because the valuation of the top currently was less than it was back in that. The purchasing power is the same, $50 less in matter of fact per Bitcoin. So, and in case, maybe some people had their Bitcoin for these, what did I say? 2 years and 9 months, maybe they were on some CFI thing and you got some interest on it, then you would be on plus if you had held from that point to this day. But right now, you have lost money if you bought the last top. That's how you should be thinking about this situation right now. And that is very bearish in my opinion, because there is obviously this thing with the halving. Halving is not just decreasement of the supply per block. It is, the minted amount. It's also the meaning that the electricity cost is gonna double, and obviously the difficulties are their own thing. Now the big problem, which kind of goes into our third topic, which is the politics. Right now we have this big FUD campaign in America and narratives that China is going to be invading Taiwan. Okay, you may think, well, I don't live in these two countries. What does it matter to me? What is the macroeconomical thing here? Well, obviously, in case you didn't know, China is the second biggest economy. China getting into war is going to be having a massive impact on economies around the world, shortage on a lot of things. But in crypto specifically, there is one very bearish element here. And that is the ASIC machines. So this is something that the Maxis will never talk to you about, because they never want to really discuss this centralization issue. The 5 largest ASIC manufacturers on the world is Bitmain, MicroBT, Canaan, eBang, and Silicon. And they, look, let's be honest about it. Most of these, says Ethereum here, but Ethereum is not mining anymore. And they together hold, I think, 98% of the market right now. And where are all of these 5 companies based on? They are all in China. The minute a war will happen between Taiwan and China, and if the China is the invading force, sanctions will be levied, just like in Russia. And once those sanctions will be put in, it means no ASIC machines will be brought over to other countries. That means 2 potential scenarios. Number 1, ASIC machines are only going to be used in China, and that means that, well, the centralization of the areas is going to be Chinese. So it's going to be like all hashing power comes from China. Number 2, China is going into war. They need more electricity. They need more power. They're going to be putting up a mining ban. They're going to be putting a mining ban, or they're going to be installing, spyware into these ASIC machines or whatever. And we don't know actually how many of these 5 companies are like directly under CCP. That's like, companies don't exactly operate in the same capacity in China as they do in the other parts of the world. There's a lot more like government involvement. It doesn't mean that there isn't like any private companies whatsoever in China, but government is a lot more involved, especially in the big companies, and especially the tech companies. So this is a huge thing. And then obviously the other big manufacturer is Taiwan. But if Taiwan goes into war too, and Taiwan mostly does like NVIDIA chips and GPUs, and the other thing which you guys, if you pay attention to, is the AI stuff. The AI stuff is growing. What does the AI machines need? They need GPUs. What does that mean? GPU prices go up. So that means that GPU mining becomes extremely expensive, because not only there's a shorter supply of the GPU machines, but also AI is requiring so much of that power right now in the market. So we have this big machine trouble. Like, let's say the ASIC machines are banned from importing outside of China. These other it's not profitable anymore to mine with your GPUs Bitcoin. It's just not profitable. It's just not. And the lifespan, if you're overclocking your ASICs, they last for 6 months. The war, depending if it's going to go like Ukraine, Russia, I'm not a war expert, so I can't know, like, is it going to be a fast war, long war, etc. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge on the supply of ASICs around the world. ASICs are not manufactured really outside from China and in some parts of Taiwan. So this is a huge thing in terms of like the global electricity costs and the ASIC machines. And when the hash power goes really low, then there's going to be 51% attacks on Bitcoin and other things. It becomes a massive security issue. So this is what I'm afraid of. Even if we ignore all of this China stuff and go back into the valuation of Bitcoin and the electricity cost around the world, electricity costs have gone up, and so has inflation. And not in the same vein. So basically, Bitcoin is so not profitable mine right now in some certain parts of the world. And that's the big problem here, that can Bitcoin sustain this electricity cost throughout these very, very hard times in the global electricity costs, inflation, and wars? And I don't think it can. And that's really the negative atmosphere that I see revolving around Bitcoin on a macro scheme. So that's kind of my things, is that yes, I think there's going to be still the next peak happening in the bull market when we're going to be seeing the true new all-time high. And let's hope it's going to be going at least 80,000. That's when we could actually say that, hey, we have a new all-time high. That's, fought against inflation, because people keep saying like inflation sucks by Bitcoin. But Bitcoin hasn't beaten the inflation, guys. It hasn't fucking beaten the inflation. And I just proved it here in this statistic. It has not overperformed fucking inflation. And neither has gold. Neither has gold. This is not me saying buy gold or Ethereum. They have all performed really horribly through this test of time. Now, let's go into the third segment. And that is going to be pretty short. There's the MiCA thing, and this is more about EU bros, us going on. In 27, I think there's a new law coming out that governments can get just literally all your financial details from centralized exchanges. And one of the things I probably should have said earlier in this video is that the time of making real money in crypto is coming to a close, unless you're running out scams and things like that, which have been going very rampant, and obviously like phishing things and meme coins and rug pulls. But real money is going to be much more harder to make, because regulation is going to be so in your ass in the next cycle that it's going to be unbearable to basically. And I've been slowly transitioning out, kind of like I'm looking into AI and some other stuff, because I'm preparing for the future. I just don't see millions and trillions being made in the next cycle, especially because this cycle has been kind of weak so far in terms of many coins haven't reached all-time highs, just so you know, especially when you contrast it into the inflation. And the MiCA thing is going to be having a big impact on basically all the stable coins. So you might see USDT getting delisted in Binance. Like if you're a European user, you can no longer use USDT. USDC is going to be more compliant with the EU laws, and all these smaller stable coins like Angle Euro, those are going to be more okay. There's like a definitions, like I think it has to be lower than 1 billion market cap and things like that, and then they will not bother with you. But the moment you become bigger than that, it's going to be different regulation. So USDC, DAI, and USDC are currently under regulation, and USDT might get fucked and get delisted from European markets, and it's going to be a big thing. So, well, you can just move it into your DEX and, your own decentralized wallet. Just don't hold it on a centralized exchange or put it into USDC or some other coin. Right now, USDT don't look very good in terms of the eyes of the regulation, and even USDC is not necessarily safe. So this is a very bad development, and, we will have to see how it basically will go on. This will come out effect in 4 days. So in next weeks, we're going to be seeing a lot more important into this. The next big political event, obviously, is the US election. And, there has been a lot of talk about that crypto is going to be a subject in the debates. Some people have been saying that the outcome of the election is not going to have any impact. I doubt that, actually. I think, let's go back into that China discussion. Both Biden and Trump will go defend Taiwan. So in that sense, it doesn't matter which one you're going to be voting for. Both of those are going to be pretty hawkish on going into war with China. From our perspective, from our back perspective, we don't want that. It's not really beneficiary for anyone in the world, really, except the US elite and the military industry complex to basically go in war with China. So we need to be sure to stop the war from happening. And, I think for my position on this one is Trump is a lot more favorable towards crypto. Biden has been, in this election cycle at least, pandering towards more to crypto, which is a positive development. But Trump is ultimately going to be more favorable in terms of regulation of crypto. I like that, and I'm not American, but I'm just saying that my American base should be voting for Trump just basis on the crypto and also on the fact that he may bring end to the Ukraine war. And Ukraine war ending means two things: sanctions going down, and that means electricity is going to be cheap in Europe again, and that's also going to be meaning more spending power for Europeans, and it's also going to be meaning cheaper mining costs. So we should be definitely pro-Trump right now from these two perspectives. Biden is not going to be ending the Ukraine war, and that's pretty clear from the get-go. So that's my position here. So people who have written that, oh, the US election will not have an impact, fuck you, you're wrong. So that's my basically. And then there's the RF Kennedy, but he has no chance of basically winning in. He's probably going to be stealing votes from actually both of the candidates, in matter of fact. But he would be also a great option if he was actually a viable one. So the political scheme is the election is very important, but in terms of like in the immediate effect of the market is not going to be happening, but could be big things in Q1 of next year. Like in January, the war could end and another war can maybe start. Who knows? But it's unnecessary times, and right now I'm very leaning towards the Trump being the better crypto candidate, and I think majority of the people will agree with me. There's obviously things you're not going to be liking about either candidate, and that's just going to be, well, it's part of politics. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about airdrops a bit. And there's not really much to add here from the previous video. We went through the tier list. You can go watch the last video, and there kind of explained a bit about the tier list. There has been a big Sybil activity with a lot of these big latest drops. Today we had the Blast airdrop, and Blast was, and a lot of these current drops, people been asking obviously on a daily basis, what should I farm, what should I farm? And everything is really on these liquidity-based airdrops. It's on these Eigenlayer, LSTs, it's on Linea, and it's on Scroll and Mitosis, Soul Layer. These are the ones that are going to be printing the best because you can't Sybil money. And that's my thing here, is that the only way we can really combat this system is really just having more of these liquidity-based airdrops. It's not necessarily most fierce for the common folk who don't have hundreds of dollars lying around that they can put into every next project, but we talked about on the last video about the elevator money, moving your funds from project to a project, which should be your strategy if you don't have that many bags. So we are in that situation that there's not really that many of like activity-based airdrops coming out, in my opinion. There's a couple of them, but not too many. All the big ones, Eigenlayer, Linea, Scroll, and Mitosis and Soul Layer, those are going to be all looking at how much bags you're going to be depositing in their program and getting money. That doesn't mean lending protocols. I've said to you guys a million times, lending protocols are absolutely worthless. And you shouldn't really use any of them unless you're getting like multiple points. Like Zero Lend is offering very good multiple points and etc. But yeah, that's not where the money is. Now, the big problem, obviously, is the fucking Sybils. Like, you have people coming out with, like, $1 million here, and there was no way to basically combat this. I mean, this guy had 350 accounts, and he made $1.2 million. In the Arbitrum drop, there was a guy who made $1 million. Also, he had a lot more. I think he had 2,000 accounts. So people are just farming, and they also, most of the time, they're actually dumping all of the bags at once. They're not even saving like for a potential bull run. These guys are totally systematic, and they are GTing it the bags at immediate number one. And then there obviously has been this rise of third worldist people coming into this space and doing all types of scams. Obviously, look at Tron, it's full of gambling with Justin Sun and all of his plagiarism. And then there are these industrial airdrop farmers in China which are just like doing all types of shit, like gaming the system. They're doing parasitic things. These people, Sybils, are parasites. And it may not seem in a micro level as a big of an impact, but it is actually big impact on the price. It is giving us wrong data about the activity of the chains themselves, and it's giving a bit of a distorted look into the real activity, and that's something we actually need, the real data without the Sybil data on it. And the ethos of this community has always been kind of from the top to bottom, these initial people, the cyberpunks, they came with these ideas about decentralization, about privacy, all of these ideas, and these third worldists don't fucking give a shit. And they're just basically the parasites in the community who also like bail the minute the markets are red, and or they may just start like running scams. And it's not like just the third worldists are running scams. It's plenty of Americans and other people around the world, in Russia, whatever, second world countries. But the fundamental thing is, like, when the bear market hits, it's like 90 to 80% of the viewer base on all crypto-based YouTube channels goes down. That's what I saw with my channel and other people, other channels like Big Boy or Altcoin Daily and etc. They all lost 80 to 90% of the viewer base once the bear market hit. There were YouTubers who went on a hiatus for 9 months. I stuck around and created content throughout the bear market. I mean, yes, I wasn't maybe as active as I was now. There were months where I did maybe 2 videos or something, but I was fairly active during some of the bear market months, and there wasn't a month that gone by that I didn't drop out content. And that's what I'm very jaded about going into the next season, is that there has to be a fundamental change in the ethos of this third worldist community. They have to get interested in to the technology. They have to get interested in privacy, all these things that we take for granted. And if they don't, I mean, this movement is basically doomed, because these third worldist people are not going to be running the crypto movement into a bright future. This is not going to happen. So there's this huge ideological gap between the third worldist user and a first worldist user. It's not just about class and money. There is this ideological basis. And there are a lot of these people in this space where I'm only in it for the money. Okay, but please just don't say it out loud. It just sounds so fucking cheap. And then most, yeah, and even me, like, yeah, I am, you know, I want to make money obviously here, but I want to do it on a halal way. I want to do it like legit. I don't want to do scams. I don't want to do anything unethical. I don't want to sponsor scams. And I get, like, a lot of the times, you know, contacted by scams, and, like, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh damn, like, thank God I didn't do that. But I could have done it. I could have gotten away with it, and there's some influencers who do. I mean, you know, let's look at this guy. But yeah, basically, what I'm just trying to say is that I'm not sure will I stuck around on the next bear market, because it doesn't seem that the third worldists are getting really the message about the educational elements and all of these important things. What really matters, it's not just the bags, it's really about, you know, building out something sustainable, something which is going to be for the future generations, and it's going to be installing those freedomist ideas, really. And also, like, there are these millionaires and billionaires in China and India, and they have done very shitty job lobbying in their own country for crypto. And this can be almost the same for Americans. Like, there are a lot of crypto billionaires in America, and they, I mean, now they're kind of getting around, getting people showed in, but there has been a lot of bad progress work in terms of legislation in these third worldist countries, even though there's a lot of crypto billionaires, whether it's expats or somebody else. These people have done nothing on these countries, basically, to get the legalization going on. El Salvador is a good example, but we're talking about mostly in Southeast Asia. This region is the most problematic right now. But I'm not going to blab any longer. That's basically my views and takes on this matter. In case you liked it, leave a comment down below and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And I will be seeing you in the next video when it will be dropping out. Until then, cheers.